that you take something equally wonderful and unique away. So I just have a few announcements before we begin. First of all, the newsletter did go out this week. It was emailed in the midst of a pandemic, so thank you, Patricia Reese, who's out in the hall doing restroom duty, but we appreciate her so much. If for some reason you did not get that email, let us know and we'll make sure you're on the list. It's also available on our webpage for those of you who might be listening. You can get it that way. Just a brief announcement, one more cancellation among many, and that is the ordination festivities will once again be postponed. We will not be able to do July 25th for the simple reason that we cannot fit more than 70 people in the sanctuary. So we are going to try to find a fall date that works, and if necessary, maybe even have a screen set up downstairs. We're going to work it out, okay? Eventually it will happen. Join me in that visualization, okay? I certainly want to thank the ushers and greeters for their amazing work during this process. They come for training, they get early every Sunday, and we couldn't have done it without them to keep us all safe. So thanks to all of you. And finally, I want to introduce our prayer chaplain today. I also want to thank the prayer chaplains who have continued their calls during this several-month period. It's just been amazing spiritual support and given us prayer support, so we appreciate them so much. And today's prayer chaplain is Lynn Mark, and she will explain the process for prayers after service. Lynn?
I today am your prayer chaplain along with Hope Dodson, and we will hopefully, or not hopefully, we will be available to you for prayer after service. We've changed our routine a little bit, as you may know. One of us will be in the family room, and the other person will be in that far corner over there. And we really encourage you to come and pray with us if there's anything on your mind and heart that you need to express. And as always, all prayers are kept confidential. So I hope you'll join one of us. So the word for today is comfort. Christ in me is my comfort. Would you say that with me? Christ in me is my comfort. Experiences that move me out of my comfort zone are part of my life. The first day at a new school, starting or leaving a job, a new phase in a relationship, retiring from a career, the passing of a loved one. Any change can evoke discomfort, even grief. I grieve when I think of change as loss. Loss of security, loss of my place in my community, loss of love. The Christ, the divine presence of life, love, and wisdom within me, is my constant source of comfort through all of life's changes. I find assurance that although its physical expressions may change, life will never end. I know oneness and love with all who have been dear to me. Recognizing my divine nature, I know that there is no loss, no change, no circumstance that can limit me. And with that, I am comforted. And from Psalm 71, verse 21, you will increase my honor and comfort me once again. Would you take a moment to pray with me? Precious Spirit, with all that is going on around us, we are bound to feel discomfort in some way or another. We may worry about the pandemic or about the social unrest in our country. But Precious Spirit, help us remember to breathe and to take a moment to connect with the Christ Spirit within, the Spirit that dwells in each one of us. These quiet moments are so important to our well-being, to a sense of comfort within us and around us. Help us to remember that the Christ is always a source of strength and hope. And so it is. Amen.
Okay, we're going to begin then with today's lesson, today's message. And I want to just begin by reviewing our 7 C's together. We come together as a compassionate, courageous, contemplative, collaborative, connected community. So I'm going to start with a story today, okay? Once there was a king who held a contest to see which artist could paint the best picture of peace. The king carefully considered the many entries, and in the end he found two that he really liked. One was a picture of a calm lake, perfectly mirroring the majestic towering mountains surrounding it. Overhead was a blue sky with fluffy white clouds. Everyone who saw that picture agreed it was the perfect representation of peace. The other picture had mountains in it also, but these were rugged and bare, with a ferocious foaming waterfall charging down on the rocks. And above was an angry sky filled with heavy rains and flashing lightning. This picture, everyone said, looked nothing like peace. But when the king took a closer look, he saw that behind the angry-looking waterfall, a tiny bush had grown right up in the rock. And on that bush, a mother bird had built her nest. There, in the midst of the rushing, angry water, sat the bird, a picture of perfect peace. The king chose the second picture because he knew that peace does not mean being in a place where there is no noise, turmoil, or trouble. Peace means being in the midst of these things and still feeling the security and serenity in your heart. A timely message for us today, is it not? And so in their respective books we've been looking at the last couple of weeks, The Eye of the Storm, Embracing Conflict, Creating Peace, and The Eye of the Storm for Teens, Finding Peace in the Midst of Conflict, Uni ministers Gary and Jane Simmons use the metaphor, the eye of the storm, to describe our spiritual center where we always find that perfect peace. And by the way, in terms of Jane's book, a couple of people asked me last week if it would be a good gift for teenage grandchildren or children. And I said yes, but I'll tell you what, the book is not just for teens. She is able to take all of the concepts in Gary's book and just make them so beautifully, just explains them really well, like a good teacher does, and it's full of stories and things that we all like, not just teens. So I really do recommend that book. So, let's see. Reverend Gary says in his book, at the center of the hurricane is its eye, a single point in space where the forces of the storm are in perfect equilibrium, a place of absolute stillness. The eye of the storm, in other words, is our Christ center, our spiritual essence. And at the circumference of the storm, all around us, the winds of confusion, misunderstanding, blame, the need to be right can blow with devastating ferocity. But at the center, there is only wholeness. As spiritual beings having a human experience, we can navigate all the conflicts from our outer lives, from our spiritual center, where there's never fear, there's never distress. There's only wholeness, divine love, power, and peace. Jesus models this for us in a familiar story, almost everybody knows, set on the Sea of Galilee, and it's told in the Gospels Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all three synoptic Gospels. After he's been teaching the multitudes all day, Jesus says to the disciples, let's go to the other side, meaning the other side of the sea. So they cross the sea in a small boat, and Jesus falls asleep in the stern, his head on a cushion. According to Mark, here's his description, a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat so that the boat was already swamped. The disciples panic and wake Jesus up, saying to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? Jesus rebukes the wind and says to the sea, words from the Old Testament, from the Hebrew Bible, peace, be still. The wind ceases and the sea calms. Then Jesus rebukes the disciples, saying, Why are you afraid, you of little faith? Well, in terms of the disciples' fear, Bible scholar Ed Townley notes that this event occurs very early in Jesus' ministry. His reputation is beginning to grow, and he is beginning to draw large crowds. But at this point, even his disciples don't really get it. In some ways, they never got it, but they certainly didn't get it here. They don't fully understand the Christ power that Jesus is talking about and demonstrating. The disciples represent human consciousness, and I think we can all relate at this moment in time about how easy it is to fall into fear and discord, can we not? So in calming the sea, the storm, Jesus looks beyond the stormy circumstances of life to a greater reality, showing the disciples and us that the power of God through the Christ within is absolutely unlimited. When he affirms, "Peace, be still," peace immediately manifests in the outer world. That's something that we need to remember too. Now, I know we don't normally think of Jesus as asleep on the job, do we? But he was asleep in this moment, and probably because he was exhausted after a day of teaching the multitudes. I can identify with that. His sleeping is evidence, though, that through Christ's consciousness, Jesus is unaffected by the storms of the outer world. Reverend Townley helps us find a deeper significance in this part of the story. He says, that same Christ power in Jesus lives in every single one of us. But it doesn't take charge of our lives. It lies peacefully asleep, ready for us to call upon and awaken it. But too often in our human skins, we tend to work ourselves up into a state of high anxiety instead of calling upon the Christ of our being. When our faith in the Christ is greater than our fear of outer storms and drama, we can immediately turn within and align with the wholeness and Christ's power that we are. And from our wholeness, we see situations and other people more clearly. Reverend Jane writes, storms don't just happen by accident. A hurricane needs certain conditions, such as temperature, wind velocity, and humidity, in order to rise up. In the same way, certain conditions in our lives can cause storms of conflict to arise for us. Now, please understand here that we're not saying that we cause all the conflicts in the outer world. That's really metaphysical malpractice to think of it that way. Certainly, our thoughts have creative power, and we do tend to attract ourselves to that upon which we focus. However, as Unity Minister Eric Butterworth famously said, we cannot control everything that happens around us. We cannot control everything that happens to us, but we can always control what happens where? Within us. That's exactly right. So, Jane and Gary explore what they call winds of conflict, certain conditions in our consciousness that create discord. The first wind of conflict is something we talked about last week. It is a consciousness of separation. There is a saying that I really like, and the saying is, if God seems far away, guess who moved? So here's the question, and this is a really compelling question for all of us. If we are whole and complete, then why don't we know it and feel it every single moment of our lives? Reverend Jane tells a story from Tuesdays with Mourning about a small wave that is happily rolling along in the ocean. Suddenly he notices that the waves in front of him are crashing against the shore. He becomes terrified, cries out, and tries to warn all the other waves. Look out, he says, we're all going to crash. Another wave calmly says to him, relax, you are safe. You're not just a wave in the ocean, you are part of the whole ocean. And just as a wave can never be separate from the ocean, you and I and all of humankind can never be separate from the presence of God. Life is all one. There is no separation except in our own consciousness, in our own minds. Reverend Jane says, we enter the world with an unconscious innocence, knowing our oneness. If you ever hold a baby in your arms, you know that's true. Babies are just trusting and loving and can feel their oneness. However, as we grow up, we find that life does not always go the way we think it should, and we develop error judgments about ourselves. Throughout childhood, most of us were not told that we were children of God, created whole and free. If you were told that as a child, you're really lucky. I wasn't told that as a child. Reverend Jane says, it's not really what happens to us that causes us to develop this consciousness of separation. It's the beliefs we develop about ourselves because of what happens to us that get in our way. We end up spending our entire lives wearing masks to cover up our false beliefs. Now at this point, I think we all know how uncomfortable it is to wear a mask, right? Not very comfortable. But the thing is, we are willing to show to the world only those parts of ourselves that we think are acceptable. But the parts that we deem unacceptable don't go away. They lie hidden and buried and are known as the shadow. And we all have our shadow work to do. Reverend Jane writes, this is like holding a beach ball underwater. It takes a lot of energy to keep it down, and eventually, no matter how long you try to hold it underwater, the ball is going to pop up somewhere, and I would add sometimes when we least expect it. So these hidden negative beliefs are not products of our heart, our Christ center. They are products of our head, our intellect. And when they cause us to act out, we are not showing up in the world as we truly are. As we said last week, other people can reveal, mirror for us where we are not connected to our wholeness. We are all whole and free, every single one of us. There's nothing we can ever do or fail to do to change that, but we don't really grasp it in our own consciousness. And what is revealed can be healed. We always have a new choice. We can let go of those beliefs that make us feel small, insignificant, and unworthy. We can transform any situation, just as Jesus did in the boat, by choosing to see it clearly. Instead of listening to that self-judgment tape in our heads, we can go to our hearts and see ourselves from spiritual perspective. When we awaken to our true identity, we see every experience and every person clearly, and that is important. And what is our true identity? Well, the Sufi creation story tells it like this. In the beginning of time, the Creator wanted to behold the beauty of creation, and so a mirror was fashioned. As the mirror was held up to the Creator's face, so great was the light, power, and beauty of that image that the mirror shattered into billions of bright, shining pieces of every size, shape, color, and description. Thus were the people of the world created, reflections of spirit, all unique facets of the one. So the story beautifully exemplifies that we are all reflections of one spirit. Reverend Jane advises, whenever you find yourself lost in feelings of unworthiness, ask your heart these questions. How can this be possible? How can I possibly be unworthy or unlovable if I am a reflection of the one? And the second question is, what is the truth about this situation? The truth that sets us free, is that there's only one presence and one power in the universe, and we are all one unique divine expression of that one presence. So knowing this, we see clearly, we experience oneness through communion. Communion means common unity. Common union, it means unity, being connected to all life. Communion is the eye of the storm. Reverend Jane says, the first step of wholeness is seeing the distinction between you and your experience. She invites us to look at our hands. Everybody do that? Just look at your hands, okay? Look at your hands. You have hands, but guess what? You are not your hands, are you? You're more than that, right? In the same way, you are not your experiences, you are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings. You certainly are not what other people tell you you are. If we judge our self-worth according to our experiences, we are looking for our wholeness in all the wrong places. And then when somebody judges us, if we're not considering ourselves whole, we react by trying to defend or disprove the accusation. Just think of the last time you were judged. I mean, sometimes we do that. We start arguing, explaining, and defending. And if we do that, we miss the opportunity to create communion and connection. So, do think for a minute of that last time when you were judged by someone and how did it feel? It feels pretty yucky, doesn't it? You feel like you're not listened to, you're not understood. Jane says, I want to let you in on a very important secret, one that can help you overcome judgments. Now, I'm not sure, personally, if this is really a secret. I think we all know it. But it's something that we cannot hear often enough. It is, a judgment is never about you. I'm going to say that again. A judgment is never about you. It might be about something you said or did, and that is something you can consider and think about. However, it is always about what the other person needs. It may be about what is missing for them in your relationship. In fact, it is for you, because through you, you can discover where you are not connected to your self-worth. For example, if someone came up to me and said, Jane, you're a slacker, you don't work hard enough, I most likely would let that just roll right off me because I know it's not true. I overwork to a fault, okay? So I'm not going to accept that about myself. However, well, Jane has a cute little saying for this. She says those kind of judgments pass through us like a breeze through a screen door. They just pass through and we don't grab hold of them. However, if someone said to me, Jane, you are a lousy minister, because ministry is important to me, and this, it's my life's work right now, just for a moment, I might allow that to trigger residual fears of my not being good enough. And we all have those once in a while. No screen this time. I would catch that second statement, get defensive, and ironically, what would happen? I would let it affect my performance. I would make it true, wouldn't I, by holding it in my head. Because if I catch it, it is about me, and it's something for me to look at and learn from. We can become aware of our healing needs as we watch our own reflections to others' judgments. And what valuable information is that for us to discover those hidden, faulty beliefs. Reverend Jane writes, judgment is the package, but you have to be willing to accept the gift. The gift is awareness and growth. And if we don't buy into those judgments, then we have wonderful opportunities for connection and communion. For example, if someone tells me I'm a lousy minister, I can realize it's not the truth of me, and that it's about something missing for the other person. And this understanding allows me to listen from the heart and get to the real issue. Now, maybe it's something I can fix and maybe it isn't, but at least I know what's beneath the comment. And Jane gives us 3 magic words to say when someone criticizes or judges us. 3 magic words. Anybody want to guess what they are? No? Okay, well they are, I bet somebody said this before, tell me more. Tell me more. Or sometimes I'll say to people, would you like to say more about that? Or would you tell me more about that? If somebody lashes out at you, and tell me more is a formula to lovingly and peacefully deal with judgments in a healing way. We have to be in the right consciousness to do that, obviously. After the other person has elaborated on the issue, our next question can be, well, what is it that you need? Or what seems to be missing here for you? In my case, like, what would I have to do for you to think I'm not a lousy minister? That sort of thing. Now, this process does not mean that you never get a chance to respond, to say how you feel about the situation. After you've really heard the other person, you can say, now that I've heard you and you feel understood, I'd like to share what's missing in this for me. And then you compassionately share it. It also doesn't mean that you have to reach agreement. Maybe you never will. You just have to be willing to come from your own wholeness and make a connection with the other person. This is called nonviolent, I like to call it compassionate conversation. It is listening and speaking from the heart, and that's the gateway to true healing and authentic connection. The Chinese verb for listen is composed of characters of heart, eyes, and ear, meaning to give undivided attention and become fully present to one another. Moving the conversation from our heads to our hearts, we feel connected. We experience our oneness, and peace and love are there, and they are a connecting link between God and the person and the situation. This is how we can be who we've really come on this earth to be. The peace and love we are always wins. Always.
There's a holy hush around us as God's glory fills the place. I've touched the hem of His garment. I can almost see His face, and my heart is overflowing with the fullness of His joy. I know without a doubt that I've been with the Lord. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel His mighty power and His grace. I can feel the brush of angel wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
And so now, I invite you to close your outer eyes if you have not already done so. Just become comfortable in your seat wherever it is you are, and take that deep healing breath, that breath that aligns us and grounds us in the truth of our being. And as you continue breathing in and breathing out, just be conscious of the natural rhythm of your breath, the breath of life. With each inhalation, feel yourself breathing into the stillness, into the serenity. And as you exhale, just release any outer concerns, worries, fears, or thoughts of less than. Beyond the challenges of life and the worries of your heart, there is peace. Beyond appearances of discord and division in the physical world, there is love. In sacred communion now, turning within to the Christ of your being, know that you are at this moment and always one with the one. Feel the spirit of unconditional love and peace move within you. Be still, and know. Our co-founder, Myrtle Fillmore, wrote, "Be still and know at this moment that your heart is the altar of God, of love, a love so irresistible and magnetic that it draws your supply to you from the great storehouse of the universe. Be still and know that the presence within you is greater than any challenge in the outer world. So in this consciousness, if there is any storm brewing in your life right now, any challenge, situation, person, or group of people that might seem to be against you, bring that into your mind's eye now. The first part of dismantling your fear and resentment and angst is inviting it into your awareness without judgment. Realize that fear keeps you focused on the past or worried about the future, and resentment blocks the love that you are. In the storm, where there is calm and peace that passes understanding, you move to the I. And in this moment, I'd like you to visualize this person or situation that you are having issues with. And then at the same time, see a beautiful, white, healing light energy gently surrounding and enfolding the situation, person or persons, and gently enfolding and expressing you. This light is God energy, the perfect love that casts out darkness. Turning to the Christ within and focusing on God's power for goodness in your life, see this condition, this problem, this trouble gently fade away, dissolving in the pure white light. In its place, you gain a feeling of serenity and harmony, just as Jesus calmed the sea, just as Jesus looked past any appearances of lack to abundance, so too you can see things more clearly. Through all the powers of the Christ, you are being guided to an inner life of truth. Visualize this for a few moments in the silence. And now we come together as a greater spiritual community, so grateful that no matter what the outward appearance is, we can always look and find that perfect peace and love in the indwelling presence. I invite you to take these few affirmations into your heart. I am a radiating center of love and peace. I am calm and peaceful in the presence of confusion, anger, or distress. Centered in the awareness of my oneness with all that is, my thoughts turn to love and compassion. Radiating peace and love, I make a difference in the world. This is the truth that sets us free, and we are grateful. Together we envision a peaceful planet of unity, love, respect, and oneness for all. And so it is. Amen.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all those obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. I think I can make it now that pain is gone. All of those bad feelings have disappeared. Spirit power is what I've been praying for. So it's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. Look for the light, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue skies. Oh yeah. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see those obstacles that were in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshine kind of day. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
We come now to the time of our service where we pause to reflect and give thanks for our many blessings. And we can certainly see more clearly from today's lesson that when we feel the love that we have for ourselves and for one another, we truly are interconnected. We are each a strand in the web of life. So centering ourselves in this conscious realization of the divine love that we are and that we express for each other, let's give thanks by saying together, divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. We'll close today's service with a music video called Love Wins by Harold Payne. And when we're finished, an usher will dismiss you. If you wish to remain and pray with a prayer chaplain, please let the usher know and just stay in your seat until the sanctuary is empty. Until next time, thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing each of you again next week, either here in our sanctuary, on our Facebook page, or on our website. In the oneness of divine love, know that we'll be holding you in our hearts and prayers.
You turn the news on, you get your blues on from all the negativity. It's hard to wrap yourself around what's going down on TV. You can stress it, second guess it. You can think about it way too hard, or you can move the conversation from your head to your heart. Sometimes it's a matter of just letting go and holding on to the one thing we know. Love wins, that's where the circle of life begins. It's the one simple lesson we're learning again and again. Love wins. We all matter, it doesn't matter if we're on one side or the other, as long as we find a way to get along with one another. We can agree to disagree, or maybe even realize that you see another point of view when you look through someone else's eyes. sometimes it's as easy as just letting go and holding on to the one thing we know. Love wins, love wins. That's where the circle of life begins. It's the one simple lesson worth learning again and again. Love wins whenever you give it a chance. It is the one hope that everyone has to build a better world for us all. Love wins, love wins. That's where the circle of life begins. It's the one simple lesson